All right, good afternoon or good morning, whatever time of day you're watching this. Welcome to episode 2 of the Cross Continents Chat Sports podcast. I'm your host for the second podcast, Rachel Bishop, in Toronto, Ontario, where it is a balmy 11 degrees on May 10th, which is always nice. I'm joined by my fellow sports fan and podcaster, Charlie Wayman, in Miami, Florida, where it is a balmy 28 degrees today, I believe.
Anyway, viewers, Miami is lovely, nice and warm at 26 degrees and rainy and with high humidity.
Well, trying this again. So to start this podcast off, we're just going to discuss the U.S. national women's soccer team. So the U.S. national women's soccer team lost its case in federal court, arguing gender discrimination, claiming that they were victims of gender discrimination because they're women and they get paid less than the men. And the federal judge dismissed the case. Of course, this was won by Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe. And the judge said that they argued that they actually made more money in 2019, which they did make more money. But the reason for that is because they won more games and they were very successful. And of course, the men don't really win anything. So I wanted to know, as a male and as an athlete, what your thoughts were on that issue.
Well, I gotta say, there's no question and no doubt in my mind that the women absolutely per game, not at the end of the tournament, but per game, should be paid more than the men. They win. They should be paid at least the same, if not a bit more, because of the men as like a bonus, because of the success of the team. But I'm also not surprised that the court found this loophole. I'm really not. Because you have this defense, and then they come up with, well, at the end, because you played more, you technically earn more money. So that's saying because you're being good, you're earning more money. So I think, from their perspective, the perspective of the women's soccer team, you need to shore stuff up like this so then they can't get away with that. It's something as simple of, we get paid less per game than the men, which they do, but we win trophies, we win World Cups, we win Olympics. So, it was something as easy as that fell through the cracks, and the judge and the defense found a loophole. I think it's not an if, but it's a when they will be paid the same. You got to keep fighting for it. But I really think, you got to cover all angles. You got to cover all bases, because unfortunately, misogyny and all this kind of stuff is still, and sexism is still a huge issue in this society. So with something like this, if I'm Megan Rapinoe or I'm Alex Morgan, keep fighting and keep going with it,
Continuing. So continuing on with women in soccer, we saw earlier this year that Christine Sinclair beat the record for international goals by a soccer player, male or female, with her 165th goal and her 296th cap, I believe. She beat the record held by Abby Wambach, which Abby had for many years. And for comparison's sake, Cristiano Ronaldo only has 99. And I think he's second for the men or something like that. And some people have been getting some flack for saying that Sinclair isn't as impressive, or that really Ronaldo still has the upper hand because the level of competition in men's soccer is so much higher than in women's soccer. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on that issue.
Well, to be honest, I kind of agree with the level of competitiveness. Obviously, no, I'm not taking a dig at women or Christine Sinclair at all. Christine Sinclair is a fantastic soccer player. For the viewers, if you guys have no idea who she is, after this podcast, don't do it now. After this podcast, Google it, YouTube it. This player is amazing. She's a heck of a player. She's a beauty. Really? I've made a comparison to her to the Hayley Wickenheiser of soccer for Canada. She's a symbol of national pride, Christine Sinclair. And she's definitely a treasure in the sense of, she's a quality player. She's huge for the sport. Especially on compared to Abby Wambach's teams where, she had a stacked team. Christine Sinclair had a team of like nobodies.
Basically, nobody, yeah.
Yeah, essentially nobodies, and she still achieved this. So that just shows the quality of the player. But I really gotta take a segue into science. It's getting more equal, as genetics and biology evolve. But to be honest, men are still stronger, taller, faster, more intense, more competitive. It's nature. It's science, people. This is what it is. If you take a men's soccer game and you take a women's soccer game and put them next to each other, you can tell which one is faster. You can tell which one is more intense. So while Christine Sinclair I think she almost has like 300 appearances and 66.
55 goals.
165 goals, thank you, which is incredibly impressive. Ronaldo he's played like 60 or 70 less games because in men, not all the superstars play the games. So he's played considerably less games, even though they're almost the same age. And creds to her, but the competition, as well as he's played fewer games and he's only like 70 goals behind. It's really a difference. Because we know Cristiano Ronaldo is an absolute monster. Mm-hmm. His workout regime, if you guys want to look it up and want to kill yourselves, that is his workout regime is absolutely amazing. So, definitely he's totally ripped. I just think that overall, I think Cristiano Ronaldo has more of an impressive career. He also gets a lot of, experience with playing a proper pro league because the women's league really hasn't taken off yet. So I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, that was very well said. I totally agree with you on all counts there. So moving on now to hockey, which is my favorite sport. I know it's your favorite sport too. We saw kind of this year has sort of been hockey's reckoning a little bit, and this continued recently last Wednesday when there was some chats, chats and Twitter, Instagram comments, leaked onto Twitter from my private Instagram message. Former Capitals forward Brendan Leipzig was part of that group. He has since been released from his contract. Others are involved, including his brother and a Florida Panthers prospect, who also faced consequences as well. Suffice to say, several of these messages included misogynistic comments, calling Tanner Pearson's wife fat, making fun of her, making fun of women's acne, making fun of his teammates, calling them lame and stupid and whatever. So basically, long story short, we know hockey really has a big problem of xenophobia and racism and sexism and homophobia and etc. So, as a hockey fan and as a former athlete yourself, even though I know you never played hockey, what do you think hockey has to do to try to change this culture, this dude bro toxic masculinity culture that encourages such behaviors?
Yeah, folks, it sounds like that I know a lot about hockey, and I believe that I do, but I have never played ice hockey in my life. I know that is really weird, and I know everybody's going to say I'm a poser. I totally get it. Go for it. But anyway, playing sports, there's always going to be chirping. There's always going to be insults. There's always going to be just mental games to rattle the other player. But this stuff is uncalled for. It's completely uncalled for. It's ridiculous. It's inappropriate. And, you just got to get – Brendan Leipzig, get with the times, man. You can't get away with stuff like that anymore. I think it's despicable, especially if it's your former teammate's wife, and you're saying that she's fat. Like, oh my God, look how fat she got. Like, really, man?
Yeah.
How old are you? 12? I think it's despicable, and I think I'm glad the Washington Capitals, terminated his contract and waived him. I really think the NHL needs to kick him out of the league. I know it's harsh. Yeah. I know it's brutal. I know it's going to be a huge shock, but that's the point. They need to set an example, because if they set an example, those players are going to learn, and they're going to learn to keep their mouth shut. Nobody can control what they think, but you can control what people say. So keep it in your head, shut your mouth, and just play hockey. I know it's very controversial to say shut up and dribble, but shut up and play hockey. These comments do not deserve to be in the game, any sports league whatsoever. You need to cut that out. It's not cool. It's not okay. I'm sure you could have said that 45 years ago or something like that playing hockey, but not now.
Yeah.
These times you can't do that anymore. So he should grow up.
Just commenting off the 45 years ago thing. I don't know if you saw the Brett Hall comments that came out a few days ago. Brett Hall is a Hockey Hall of Famer, one of the best American players ever to play. Canadian born actually, but didn't play for Canada, so played for the US. And he actually said that social media is ruining hockey. The game's not fun anymore, and that you can't do these things that he did back in the day because of social media, because you'll get caught. He's like, back in the day, we said and did these things. Obviously, you know, for lack of a better term, he was kind of an asshole, said some misogynistic comments, basically. He's like, we could go out and party, we could drink, we could smoke, we could do whatever and come back and nobody would say anything because nobody knew. So basically, he's blaming it on social media rather than players' behavior. And I think that just kind of encapsulates really hockey culture as a whole, and kind of, like you said, how it's been so ingrained for so long as part of our culture that it's been acceptable to do these things. And I'm sure, social media is a part of it. We do have to be careful what we say, but just because, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I said this. Well, are you sorry you said it, or you're sorry you got caught? Now kind of with social media, we're seeing people apologize because they're sorry they got caught, right? So I think that his comments kind of totally summed up what is wrong with hockey and really how far we have to go to see this change.
Yeah, but the thing is, folks really need to understand the whole story of it. I'm not defending Brett Hall or anything like that. But, you understand that he's from a different time. He played, 25 years ago?
Yeah, I think he retired in the 90s or 2000s. I'm not really sure.
There you go. So, that was a long time ago, and things were done differently. You can't judge the past by modern standards because the society's different. Everybody's different. Yeah, growing up playing sports, I got called stuff all the time. I got called, I got called the F word, which F word meaning like F word being offensive to the LGBTQ community. I've been called that. I might have not, I never took it seriously. But not everybody can do that. There's a lot of people who will take it to heart, and take it seriously, and it will mentally mess with them. That's just the way society is. That's the way the society is becoming. There's a lot. It's being taken a lot more seriously, instead of just, hey, toughen up, or hey, don't be a girl, or hey, don't do this, don't be a pussy, don't do that, things like that. We're not in that society anymore, because, naturally, we are just becoming more attuned to those kinds of insults. We are becoming more sensitive, and, I think it's a good thing because we're including more people as a whole, as you're thinking about more people. Instead of forcing everybody to be some tough kid or something like that, you're forcing people to be who they are. And, it's okay to be upset, or it's okay to be who you are. But that's a tangent. So it's just a tribute to the time, and I think people need to study and analyze that and just don't take it personally about what he's saying, because he grew up in a different time. Look, there are still folks in their 80s and 90s that have certain views about people of different skin color. You're not going to change them. I really think that you just have to understand that they're from a different time. Better?
Yeah, continuing on. So, I think your comment about the NHL suspending him and kicking him out, I think that makes a lot of sense, because if the NHL does it, then other leagues will follow suit, and it'll be a domino effect, and we'll see it happen at other leagues. Like, they'll say, you can't do this shit in the NHL, so you're not going to do it here. I do think it is a bigger issue, like you talked about when you played sports, and I know when I grew up playing hockey in Toronto, this is like 10 years ago, even in the dressing room, the D word for mean word for lesbian was thrown around a lot in the change room as like an offensive thing. So I think it really is a grassroots issue. But I think if we started at the top and it work its way down, I really think that it'll have that domino effect. But yeah, especially if the NHL does it, and we know they don't like to have very good discipline, it will send a message, I think, and it will show that, hey, we're here and we're not going to accept this anymore. So.
It's true you can down it at the level, but, I'm not even thinking of pro hockey at this point. I think you got to be doing this starting in middle school. You got to start this in middle school, grade 6 to 8, or however your middle school works. I know Quebec is a little different with CEGEP and so on, but, you got to start this when you're playing hockey in school, and then obviously have the pro leagues, but it's already a standard for these kids to not put up with stuff like that.
Oh,
because
yeah.
That's where it starts.
Oh, even before middle school. I mean, this should start when like kids are like 7, 8 years old.
Well, there you go. Then it's got to start in the midget leagues or however they are.
Midget,
Bantam.
It's 15.
Well, whatever. Pee Wee started at the one above Pee Wee hockey, whatever it is. You got to start this young. I think, yes, the NHL level, but why don't you just hit it from both sides? So have the NHL level do that, so then it trickles down to the other pro leagues. Hopefully internationally, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
And then also have it start them young on that. It's the way to do it.
So continuing on with NHL hockey here, Red Wings general manager Steve Yzerman has criticized the NHL for wanting to hold its draft early. So usually the draft is end of June. Obviously, now that shit's hit the fan with COVID, everything's pushed back because the season hasn't finished yet. It's probably not going to finish.
Close to my birthday.
That's right. So they're thinking of having, I think, the draft in earlier June, if I'm not mistaken. And Steve Yzerman is saying, what's the rush? We don't need to have it now. So do you agree with Stevie Y on this, or do you agree with the NHL on this?
I think at this point, Stevie Y is just trying to buy himself more time.
Yeah.
For this, which, I kind of don't blame any general manager, but it's also the question of, since this thing started, what have you been doing? As a general manager, I'm sure you can talk to your scouts and Zoom and do all kinds of stuff to figure out who you want to draft. It's obviously pretty obvious who's going to be first overall. The Red Wings are in the pole position to be first overall.
Yeah.
So with Lafreniere, even though I know some Hab fans are really wanting the French kid to come play in Montreal. Don't blame you guys. So I could definitely, I'm with the NHL on this one because, you got to have some sort of normal. I also think it's important for the player who gets drafted. Let's say, Lafreniere gets to meet up with the Red Wings. He gets a chance to spend the summer, even if it's coronavirus, if there's training ever resumes, spend the summer with Dylan Larkin, learning from him, learning from Anthony Mantha, learning from even Justin Abdelkader, who's one of the biggest characters in the locker room for that team. I really think it's important to do that and, give them an off season to interact with their future teammates off the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So doing this in like September and October and then try to continue a regular season just is wonky and it doesn't make any sense. So I really think, just have it in early June. You can do virtual draft like the NFL. You can still boo Gary Bettman because they booed Roger Goodell at the NFL draft. So that'll be wonderful because they even had Michael Strahan boo. Using Zoom, they had Michael Strahan boo Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell looked at him like, Michael, really? Are you serious right now? So, the NHL can do that. I would love to see like Wayne Gretzky or somebody boo Gary Bettman, even though it probably won't happen. But maybe like Chris Pronger or somebody funny would do it. Hey, Sean Avery, that'd be awesome. So I think they can do this in early June, and Stevie Y, just suck it up, man. That's honestly my opinion. Just suck it up. You're a wizard of a GM anyway, so I'm sure you've already got most of your draft picks, figured out, or at least you've got a bunch of options.
Yeah, that's very true. It's just a fun fact about Roger Goodell, actually. I used to go to camp with his niece.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Tori, nice girl. This is in New York State, but yeah, it was cool. When he was named like NFL commissioner. They had a big banner and everything to celebrate it. It was funny.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was cool. All right, so moving on from that, but continuing on to the NHL. So the NHL has recently discussed their new plan. They've moved away from the North Dakota plan, and the new plan seems to be to have kind of hubs. So a hub for each division for the playoffs. So, like Toronto's being talked about for the Atlantic, Columbus or Pittsburgh for the Metro, Vegas for the Pacific, and then I don't know the other one for the Central, or Edmonton or something like that. The idea is to have 4 hubs to limit exposure. The idea to have them downtown, so hotels that are near the arenas, etc. And I think the NBA is thinking about doing this, and even Premier League. So I was wondering what your thoughts are regarding this hub issue for returning to play games.
I don't see it as an issue. I just see it as a semi-valid idea, and I'll get into that. It's a semi-valid idea simply because the U.S. and Canada are not just 2 countries. They're a total of 63 different governments, meaning the 13 provinces in Canada, and of course the 50 states in the United States of America. So it's hard to do that because let's say Toronto is good to go, so it's like, hey, Atlantic Division, go to Toronto. But then you have Florida, who's not ready to open up or not ready for plane flights. So then it's kind of like, what are you going to do?
They'd probably
and also
for the NHL, I would reckon.
Also, it would just
so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it also would be a heartbreaker for like the Bruins to have a home ice at the Scotiabank Center. Same with the Habs. That's just kind of wrong, in my opinion.
It would be definitely weird.
But I think it's definitely an idea. Also, I really feel bad for the folks having to play, out west where it's a lot colder. Like I know Edmonton gets pretty cold until May or June, so that's a little bit rough for them versus like Toronto in June is really pretty and really nice typically, unless we have like major climate change issues or something. But it's an idea. I think it's semi-valid. It's something to think about. But I would really like to see, sure, if you do this hub thing, are you going to have fans go to the arena or not? Because if you're thinking of fans in the arena, you're going to have issues with different states letting certain fans out because of traveling fans that fly planes and stuff.
I think the NHL is planning on having hubs without fans.
Okay. Oh, okay. Then that could actually work.
Especially since every a lot of provinces and states are like, the only way to have professional sports is to have games without fans. Like I know in Ontario, at least that's what they're saying. I'm sure Florida is similar. So I think they also kind of have to follow what the government's saying. They can't just be like, we're the NHL, we're ahead of the government. So if the government's saying fans, they can't have fans.
Florida's not even there yet, so don't even count on us down here. Don't even. It's an absolute disaster down here, in Florida. But oh well, you're Trump's favorite state, basically. So
it's true.
Yeah, well, actually, I think he's changed his residency to Florida now, so it's like, yay! Yeah. Anyway, it's definitely valid. I assume, I guess, players from different teams would have to stay in hotels and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In the meantime, and they're just going to have to wait.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's a valid idea, and it's something to think about. But it's also, how long are we going to do this for?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'd probably do that to finish out, like, at least depending on when the season comes back, they'd probably do that to finish out the season or for like the first bit of the season, and then they just get back to normal for next year. But I guess it depends on when the season comes back, and like they probably won't be able to do it like normally until like every year. That's a good point. You have like until every state's back to normal, right? Like BC is already ahead of Ontario in terms of opening up because they dealt with this better than Ontario did. And like same thing, with Quebec as well. So unless you're in Montreal. So it really depends probably on.
Yeah, there's 43 U.S. states that are opening up now, and 30 of them have had a huge spike in cases. So that's just an example of this is going to be a very long fight and a very long battle to open everything up. So, I don't know. It's definitely a concept, and it's better than no hockey.
Definitely
better than no hockey.
Definitely better than no hockey. I will take this over hockey, and next season things will be back to normal. The NHL has said this, so I'm happy for that next season to be back to normal. Which gives the Leafs more chances to try to win a Stanley Cup. So I'm always down for that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the rest of the NHL fans agree with me that it's totally fine if the Leafs do not win a Stanley Cup. I'm totally good with that. I'd rather it be Tampa. Let's be real.
I need one before I die, though.
Yeah, just not this year.
Or the Penguins can always get another one. Jake Gensel's going to come back.
Yeah, no. Actually, no. I want the Leafs to win it this year because then the players won't feel as accomplished. So that works because they get to win the cup in the screw up year. There we go. Okay. Let's go Leafs. Go Leafs. Go. I'm good with that.
Chicago Blackhawks who won in the lockout shortened season, and they'll tell you they don't feel any less accomplished winning that year.
Yeah, but this is way different than the lockout shortened season.
Same idea.
It's different. Anyway.
Okay. Moving on from that, he had to bash me at least once for liking the Leafs. It's all right.
Of course.
Moving on from that, it's okay. We're Leafs fans. We have thick skin. We can take it. Moving on from that, the Bundesliga has said, so that's the German league. They've said that their plan is to start games again May 15th. Now they've already extended this once, so hopefully they don't have to extend it again. But the idea is to have May 15th behind closed doors. So, which is exciting for Canadians because Alphonso Davies plays for Bayern Munich and his games will be shown on Sportsnet since there's no hockey right now. So that's really important for us to actually get to watch some soccer we probably wouldn't be able to see normally because, unless you have DAZN, you're not really getting European soccer here in Canada. So my question regarding this is which league do you think will be next after the German league to open up again to start having games?
In my opinion, I think it will be a European league. Probably it's going to be soccer or football, as that's the proper way to say it is football or footy. I wish it would be the Premier League because I want Liverpool to get the darn title already. I've been a fan for years. It's my time. I deserve it. No, they deserve it.
I'd love to see Henry win the trophy.
Oh, I know you would. I realistically, in all seriousness, I think Ligue 1 in France will open first. I think they're going to open first. Like I said before, the U.S. has 50 states, so that's 50 different countries, 50 different governments. Canada has 13 provinces, 13 governments. So it's going to take a lot longer to have everybody on the same page. I think a lot of it also, like I was mentioning, is traveling. Not just the players traveling, but fans traveling, so on and so forth, because they might have to crew a layover in a state that isn't open yet. So then they get quarantined and then they miss their game. It could be a total disaster. So I think it'll be the French league because in Europe, when they open up, they just open the whole country up. It's not just, once New York's going to open up, but California's not, but Florida's not, but West Virginia is, so I think with that, it's not going to, it's going to be in Europe. I think they're going to open up before anything in North America.
The only situation where it's kind of similar in Europe as it is to North America is in the UK because Scotland and Wales are governed separately when it comes to that. So England can open up, but not Scotland and not Wales. So that's the only thing where it'd be kind of similar to North America.
Yeah, but that isn't as serious as it is with the States.
No, that's true.
Not at all. Compared to with the States, you have Wales. There's there's no teams in the Premier League right now that are from Wales. But usually it would be something like Cardiff or Swansea, which are in the Championship. But this year in the Premier League, all the teams are in England. So it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
That's true. So then moving away from sports, our final segment is something we like to call the RQ, the random ask questions that
yes.
brilliantly came up with first episode. So this random ask questions segment is just, What kind of things besides sports, obviously, have you been missing most with this whole coronavirus nonsense? So for me, it's been, no, in no particular order, traveling. I can't wait to go somewhere as soon as we get out of this, like especially Europe and even other places in North America. Going to the bars, especially now the weather's getting nice. Well, normally it's getting nice. I love going to the bars, sitting on the patios with my friends because it's patio season. There's so many great bars and breweries and pubs in Toronto. I love doing that. Going to the movies, especially again in the summer, we have a lot of outdoor movies that happen. So that's really fun to watch movies on the big screen in a park. And it's really nice under the sunset and everything. And then, my last thing is live theater, like being able to go to the Stratford Festival. I've been going every year since I was 10. And now they've postponed the season, and that's, quite devastating for me. So I just wanted to know what were some of the things that you miss the most. I know it's not theater.
Well, I feel for you, and I do recognize that the Stratford Festival is a pretty big deal for you guys up there. So anything where you're losing a little bit of culture, I do feel for you on that. The thing that I will not be modest with is I really don't miss patios at all because I get them all year round. Florida, baby. So, but no, going back to the question, the things I'll miss definitely are going to the bars, going to the breweries, a lot of the craft breweries, which I will admit, Ontario has better craft beer than Miami. I will admit, I love Ontario craft. The Miami breweries are not, a lot of them are still very small and they're developing. So a lot of times it's the brewmaster that's serving the beer. So you get to talk to them, you get to interact with them, you get to learn about like how they got started and like what they're planning to do. I know a few brewmasters that work here in the area. They're not bad contacts to have. And I miss that part of it, but I also miss just having more or less of a regular routine. Obviously, it's nice to have like a summer vacation type of thing from work, but it was nice to actually have a regular sleep schedule instead of like waking up, going to bed at 2:30 in the morning and being all screwed up the next day. I know I sound like an old man saying that, but it's kind of nice having more or less of a regular schedule. I also really like where I work, so there's a lot of projects that I would like to have more time with and work on. Which would be really cool. So I think just kind of getting back to work, obviously making money, and really not being home so then I don't have to listen to the news and all the nonsense because, of course, 90% of it is related to coronavirus, of course, and Donald Trump. So I don't really want to hear any of that anymore. So it'd be nice to actually it's almost like an escape from all of the media and all that kind of stuff to go to work and have a regular schedule.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely, me, I like to have my routine. So definitely having a regular schedule is important. Like even not being in school right now and not having it until September, it's definitely throwing a wrench in my plans. And I'm pretty good at keeping myself busy, but I'm trying to come up with things to do to keep my routine as much as possible. So I'm not going crazy. So when things do get back to normal, I'm already like, okay, I've been doing this already. I'm not just been sitting on my bum in my pajamas all day like a lot of people have been.
Hey, I did that in university. It's not a bad life, man. Rachel is a student at Centennial College. She is studying to become a sportscaster. So, for folks watching, definitely keep an eye out for her. You might see her on Sportsnet or TSN. You never know. She might have to work with Bob McKenzie, be there on Trade Center. You never know. You never know what'll happen. So definitely keep an eye out for her for that. And I'm just a guy who's doing this for fun.
That would be nice. That would be nice. Yeah. Well, thank you. That was very kind, Charlie. So I guess that wraps up episode 2 of Cross Continent Chats. Once again, I've been your host, Rachel Bishop in Toronto, joined by my friend and colleague, Charlie Wayman in Miami. Thanks for tuning in, and tune in for episode 3 next week. Hopefully we have some live sports to talk about, and we'll see you then.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.